Philadelphia Eagles 2023 season did not end as they had hoped. Started off very strong here, coming off their runner-up Super Bowl in the 2022-2023 NFL season. But unfortunately, they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the playoffs. So Ryan and I, we're going to recap the 2023 Philadelphia Eagles season and also, too, in the second half of the video, preview the 2024 offseason for the Eagles and what we think they might do with draft picks, free agency signings, etc. But before we do that, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notified whenever we create new content. Ryan and I, we have 3-round and 7-round Eagles mock drafts coming up, leading all the way up to the NFL draft. So you're going to want to see those. Be sure to ring the bell to get notified when those videos come out. Ryan, let's pull up the slide here. So Eagles ended up going 11-6 on the season, but that doesn't really tell the story, I would say. They started off 10-1, I would say, and they just something happened. I feel like there's something because they didn't have too many major injuries that I can really remember, but something happened. It seemed like internally, and then you read reports. I would say were tabloids, but like something was going on internally in the locker room. But they just lost it. Like they just absolutely lost it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of speculation with A.J. Brown, Nick Sirianni, some of the defensive players, leadership, and young guys like just not getting along fully. And that's just really interesting to hear, especially after, I mean, in the Super Bowl, they all talked about how well they rallied around Jalen Hurts and how he was like the true leader of that locker room. And then, I mean, a year later, they've completely fallen apart. So it's really interesting. And I think the statistics show a really interesting story here. So last year, they were the number 1 defense in just about every category. I believe running, sacks, and they were top 5 passing defense. This year, they were the 31st ranked passing defense. They were the 10th ranked running defense, and they were 20th in sacks. The only real difference personnel-wise on the defensive line was the loss of Javon Hargrave. They lost T.J. Edwards and C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but neither of those players really contributed that much in sacks. T.J. Edwards did a little bit, but he was a middle linebacker and played a crucial role in the defense, just not in the sacks.
You're just referring to contribution in sacks, you mean?
Yeah, just contributions in sacks.
I would say because those are both those players.
No, just purely contributions in sacks. It affected the defense in many other ways, yes. But I think going from a 70 sack team to a 43 sack team really exposed a lot of the faults in this defense, and that is the aging secondary, especially now that CJGJ, I saw that on Twitter, I thought was pretty cool, but CJ Gardner-Johnson was off, no longer with the team. TJ Edwards no longer with the team, and just losing a guy at all three levels of the defense, and then also losing your defensive coordinator, I think was another really big loss that I think a lot of people didn't really talk about because they were so caught up in just talking about some of the personnel that the Eagles had. And then you look offensively, the loss of Shane Steichen falling down to probably about an average passing offense, still a good running attack. DeAndre Swift was able to stay healthy, and this offensive line was still really good. But they did give up a decent bit of sacks, and they were loose with the football this year. They did not put themselves in great situations. I think you actually look at their first loss to the New York Jets. They had 3 turnovers in that game. And then the trend just kind of continued. That they were averaging almost 2 turnovers a game. And it's just not – you don't win a lot of football playing that way. So just looking at the statistics from last year to this year, definitely a big change and not for the best in this scenario.
Yeah, teams just kind of go through that type of stretch there where, and it felt like what happened to them this second half of the season. I had mentioned this multiple times, but it kind of happened to, I felt like what the Bills did last year, that second half of the season. For some reason, they just lost. There was just something off about them. And then even too, if you just go look at some of their games, they just couldn't win the close games for a decent stretch, but then come the week 18 and then the wild card weekend, it just looked like everybody on the team was kind of done overall. But it just seemed like they just struggled to win those close games. Well, last year that's where they were able to pull out all those games. They rarely had a like a close loss. And well, I think they only had 3 losses last year. But anyways, there was going to be a little bit of regression from like Jalen Hurts season, which makes sense. They still had 2,000-yard receivers with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. As you mentioned, DeAndre Swift worked well. I don't think that a lot – actually, DeAndre Swift had a 1,000-yard season also. So I don't think that it was too much of a regression. I don't think the regression on the offensive side of the ball played the biggest – like that big
No, not at all.
factor in their collapse. I just look at that secondary, man, and they were giving up just yards after yard, like anybody.
Yeah.
Like they made Tyrod Taylor look great.
Yeah.
You know, in the second half of the game and the first time that they played in week 16, then in the entirety of the game in week 18. And that to me then kind of leads though into like the number one thing that they need to address is going to be that secondary. Also, too, new defensive coordinator. I don't know why. I know I want to try and do this full time with you, Ryan. I did not realize. Did Matt Patricia, was he the defensive coordinator
he was
the entire season?
He was a defensive assistant. He was not labeled the defensive coordinator, but it turns out he was calling plays for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well,
defense.
That's their problem.
Yeah,
that was their problem.
Yeah,
the entire time.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it was just a mess. Matt Patricia was the one that actually gave up the biggest Super Bowl, the biggest offense performance in a Super Bowl to the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 52 for the Patriots. And then he went on to Detroit and just was a complete sham. And
then he went back to the Patriots
to New England as the offensive coordinator. Yeah. So getting a new defensive coordinator, it sounds like Matt Patricia has already been fired and is going to be following Bill Belichick to whichever team he goes to next, which Tyler is most likely the Atlanta Falcons.
Their defense is going to suck next year.
Yeah. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do. But the big thing for me in the coaching department is going to be what happens with Nick Sirianni. There have been a lot of mixed reports about his role with the team going forward. And honestly, I want to pose this question to you, but also to the people in the chat. What other NFL teams would hire Nick Sirianni right now? If you're a team looking for a head coach and you look at the candidates out there, you got Jim Harbaugh, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, trying to think a bit, Ben Johnson,
Pete Carroll,
Bobby
Slovic.
Yeah. And it's like, where does Nick Sirianni fall in that category? And like, to me, it is actually at the bottom. I mean, he had a good season with good coordinators last year, but I just am uncertain of like his future there. And frankly, I also feel if he has lost that locker room, that could be the biggest domino to fall this offseason. And it's been quite the fall from grace for him after last season.
Well, potentially, I think that they'll probably keep him. I mean, he was the guy that led them to the Super Bowl last year.
I agree.
And honestly, too, they had a great start to the first half of the season, but I know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. But I think the thing is going to be interesting if you look at the notable free agents right now. You know, Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham. I just put vets.
They're not free agents; they're up for retirement, right?
No, they're all free agents.
They are. Okay.
At their free agency on Spot Track right now, Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham are the first 3. Then Marcus Mariota's free agent. That's obviously going to be a big loss for the team. Then DeAndre Swift, Boston Scott, Zach Cunningham. And they do have Justin Evans as well. Where is Justin Evans on the depth chart overall? I'm just not seeing him right now. But then you go to Zach Cunningham. Then you go to Shaq Leonard. Rashad Penny also, too, another running back as well. So, like, they're top 3 running backs. Well, I don't say top 3. But I think another thing as well. Nicholas Moreau throwing on the linebacking free agents as well. So that's going to be a key thing also. But I think another thing also too is if you go look, both Olamide Zaccheaus and Quez Watkins are going to be free agents, and that was kind of their number 3 slot role kind of guy.
Yeah.
So then if you go and look at their depth chart now, looking at it, I mean, I guess Julio Jones was he's their starter right now in their slot, so maybe they'll re-sign him. But they don't really have anybody else outside of him. So I guess hang on to Julio Jones. So I like rooting for him. But I think it could be interesting if you do move on from Nick Sirianni. but I believe he is going to stay from the reports that I've seen. You could go get a young quarterback. Imagine Ben Johnson running this offense with Jalen Hurts leading the way. Then you still got all the weapons. And if you're able to go and get a dynamic running back and re-sign DeAndre Swift, like get a dynamic running back in the draft, re-sign DeAndre Swift, we'll have to kind of see, but it's I think it's still an enticing team overall. I'm curious though with the 22nd overall pick. We'll have to see what corners are there, but I think secondary was so bad. I think you have to take Terry and Arnold. Because I believe Nate Wiggins and Kool-Aid McKinstry will probably be gone by then. Also, very possible too. Cooper DeJean could definitely be gone by then, so that'll be interesting to watch there. So you're looking at Terry and Arnold. You're looking at Enos Rakestraw, the guy from Toledo. What's the guy's name?
Is it Quinion Mitchell?
Quinion Mitchell is his name. Yeah. So those are guys that are up there. Shoot, Kamari Lassiter. That'd just be funny and just continue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that to me, I mean, it's got to be secondary, I think. And so I do like the two picks essentially back to back in the second round, because if they don't get secondary there, there's definitely going to be a lot of secondary guys that they'll immediately be able to try and get some starting time. Cameron Kitchen's also a safety from Miami. I think it'd be a unique one there at the 22nd spot.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like all those names. To me, I think it's the best secondary player that's on the board. Or frankly, if one of the offensive tackles falls to them, I think that's an interesting one, given the fact that Lane Johnson and Jason Kelsey are both up for retirement, because Cam Jurgens is going to kick probably to center, and then they'll need to replace the right guard spot.
I will say, sticking with the Georgia trend, I mentioned Olamide Zaccheaus and Quez Watkins gone. Imagine Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Offense here. I think that'd be super dynamic. And then you'd have AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Ladd, and then you'd have Dallas Goedert as the tight end.
Yeah,
I think that would be sick. Also, actually.
Yeah, no, that would be a really nice option. And especially if they're going to go offensive heavy, and just try to carry this defense.
Our defense sucks, so we're going to score 55 points a game.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just a really interesting. Like, they're in a really interesting spot because they're a top team that's feels like kind of on the decline, and it feels much more drastic than a team like, let's say, the Buffalo Bills. Not to be like these doomsday guys for the Philadelphia Eagles, but it feels much more drastic than the Buffalo Bills, where like they were still winning games. It's just they were making a lot of mistakes in the process. Whereas I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles are losing games and making a lot of mistakes in the process.
It's just the fall from grace. Like if they hypothetically, like let's say they won the NFC East and then ran into the buzzsaw Green Bay Packers, like how the Cowboys did, I would be singing a different tune. But but they had the season like the Cowboys had, where they grinded out, but like they saw that explosiveness on offense, defense was still playing well. Yeah. But then you just lose a game. I'd be singing a different tune. It's just the fact that they've just looked awful for 2 months now. And so like what's going on here? Also, too, looks like potentially if all three of those guys, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and Jason Kelsey, all retire, huge leadership change in the locker room, just as outside of the coaching changes as well that potentially could be coming. So how does that affect the overall dynamic of that locker room? Also, too, especially if there's already a beef between Nick Sirianni and AJ Brown, and then hypothetically, and then also Jason Kelsey, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham leave. Now, like who becomes the leader of that locker room? I mean, Jalen Hurts, yes, but then he can't do it by himself. He's going to have to also have reinforcements to help if there is some internal beef going on. All that stuff's tabloid. Either way, they got to figure it out, whatever it is that's going on. So we'll just have to see. It'll be fun to watch the 2024 offseason, kind of see what changes and moves they make.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe and leave a comment down below what you thought of the Eagles 2023 season, and also what do you want to see them do going forward into 2024. Do you want to keep Nick Sirianni? Do you want to move on from Nick Sirianni? What do you think they should do? What do you think these veterans should do? And let us know down below. And other than that, we will see you guys next time.